In 2011, Bethesda released a small game called Skyrim. You might have heard of it in passing, hopefully at least. I remember being enthralled by the game. The quests never ended. There was and still is so much left to do. This is largely thanks to their Radiant Quest system, a system which will always allow for some sort of objective. But it was more than that. There were random events that you could have played out in front of you while you went about placing buckets on heads. You could find a cat that was named a liar and was implied to be immortal. You could get robbed by highwaymen who didn't know any better. You could piss your pants being jump scared by two Spriggans in the middle of a forest. Even the lore was extensive and thorough, and I thought to myself, surely this is the most alive game world to exist. 3.5 years later, CD Projekt Red released a small game called The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. In the game you are given a lot of options that are things your character would make, not always options that you might. Options that have consequences that not only you the player, but Geralt the character need to live with. For example, there's a point early in where a different character will end their life because of choices you make in their quest. And that's an early option. The game does not let up on these choices. If you can't quite put the pieces together and unravel the mystery of what's going on with the townsfolk's problem, there are lives on the line. And even then, a lot of those problems are other people, not mythical beasts. It was dark and the game world felt real. And as I finished clearing the White Orchid for the first time at 16, I thought to myself that truly this was the most alive game world to exist. In Shadows of Mordor games, there's a copyrighted game mechanic, the Nemesis system. For every time you die, the enemies in the army gain power. They have internal fights. Each one of them has their own personality and will stop at nothing to find you and remind you that they are still a threat, death not even stopping them. And given it's copyrighted, no other game has this mechanic, making it the most alive game world. In Kenshi, you can gain power and take down the world's leaders, destroying various factions by removing the person in charge of them, and the game accounts for you being able to, altering who controls what, not only based on your actions, but possibly even the actions of bandits and vagabonds. It's a reactive world, and it's a game that is... In Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, you can talk your way out of 60% of the game. You'd probably be able to do more if the team had the time to make it, making this the most alive. I can go all day. The list of games that make an effort in some form feel like the most alive of their era is countless. Hell, I didn't even mention Baldur's Gate, which had Hello, unfortunately I'm back from Rubicon, which is where my PC went to die. Yeah, that's what was going on. That's why I was gone for 2 months. It wasn't by choice, I promise. Also, I have a cold. Anyway, I'm talking about whatever I decided to. This time, about games, the other media I'm overly fixated about. When you look at every game example I gave in the intro, you can break it down to game mechanics. Well thought out game mechanics, but game mechanics nevertheless. Every game mentioned is realized, and full game worlds in their own right, but I do feel there is a game that tops all of them combined. A game that feels more than a simple if and then in code. A game that has been very influential for me over the past year. But first, a bit of background. If you've ever watched a video essay about game worlds, especially ones that are dying, decaying, or otherwise apocalyptic, you'll likely have seen this cute little fella. This is what I would come to know as a slug cat, or a sludge as I called them. They come in a handful of flavors, but that's for later. I had seen this game show up a lot, and I always thought the pixel art was beautiful and the world really intrigued me. I wanted to know more, but I never actively sought out the game. Something about it told me it was a game that needed to find me, as many such media are. I never saw any YouTuber playing it. I started to feel like this was some sort of open secret I had uncovered. So, in the year 2023, I bought the game. I decided I would stream it since it looked kinda cool, and I started streaming to show off cool games I found to my friends. And for Rainworld, I'm really glad I did. Also, I have a bit of a speech issue with my R's and W's. It's not as bad as with Rimworld, but saying Rainworld is a bit hard for me to do. So just so we're on the same page, I'm going to simply refer to it as the game for the rest of the video. Is that cool? Cool. Anyway, here's the biggest thing about Rainworld. I still don't know exactly how to talk about it. This is unironically my 5th attempt trying to write a script for this fucking game. It has been driving me insane and plaguing me for the past year because I want to talk about this, but I don't know how. The game has so much that I want to talk about. The decaying world being overtaken by nature due to forces far outside the control of the player, forces that existed before we even came into existence, forces that noped out of existence themselves, leaving gods to toil away at their problems in search for an answer that isn't even required anymore, gods that most likely made the fauna and creatures that inhabit the world now. Every facet of this game's world is so interconnected and dangerous. But we need to backtrack a bit, to the beginning. For, to understand this world, we must first understand how it came to be. Gods, that sounds pretentious, I'm leaving it in. So there's these humanoid beings that existed long before the Survivor. That's the name of this white cherry sludge. Anyway, these beings are mostly referred to as the creators. They are the forerunners and built all the ruins you see in the world, though I doubt they made them as ruins. Probably? I'd imagine so, at least. So these guys find stuff called void liquid, right? As you go in, you are enveloped in a brilliant light, and it's believed you ascend to a higher plane of existence. And my personal theory is that the structures around the void liquid are not that of the creators. It seems to follow different architectural principles compared to other ruins we see, leading to the idea and this undertext of new civilizations overtaking old. I'm sure you've heard that shtick at least once. So the creators wanted to ascend. The only way they knew for sure how, though, is through void liquid. It's a bit inconvenient, so it's expensive to ascend. The wealthy are given the ability to ascend using a tub of this void liquid, and the less fortunate are given less stellar sounding alternatives, we'll say. So they started building massive supercomputers, giving them sentience to find a way for anyone to ascend. So they begin to iterate on a solution to solve the problem of ascendancy. The iterators, as they are called, are tasked with a triple affirmative. Affirmative that a solution has been found, a solution is portable, and technical application is possible and generally applicable. The creators made hundreds, if not thousands, of these iterators across the planet they inhabited, and as they do so, a few safety measures are put into place, one of which being that the iterators are not allowed to end themselves, like it's in their code. In such, the implication, to me, is that the creators are intended on seeing the answer. However, that didn't happen. The creators, through some means or another, all vanished, be it a mass ascendancy, as is implied, or some other means that are beyond us. It's not like we see any remains in game. Not that we would anyway, since we can assume they would have been picked clean by the time we see any. All we know is they left, leaving their massive sentient computers on to keep running, which is really bad for the electric bill, and the entire world is paying that price. Here's a rhetorical question. What do computers produce a lot of? Heat. So, to keep these iterators cooled and not able to play Doom 2016, they use water. Water from rivers, as the implication goes. So they take in all that water, heat it up, in the process, trying to cool them off. And it makes a lot of steam. That steam makes a lot of clouds. Those clouds rain. Have you heard the term when it rains it pours? Yeah, this isn't what they were talking about, Chief. The rain is so intense and violent, if you do not have shelter already, you will die. And the creatures know this. Even the lizards don't bother trying to eat you if the rain is about to hit, because they're too busy looking to find shelter. Speaking of these lizards, they were artificially created for some reason. In fact, almost nothing in this world isn't an artificially made being at this point. All of them designed for one reason or another, from the dozen versions of lizards to the leviathans, from the chickens to the scabs, even the sludge. While it's implied most of them are capable of reproduction, including sludge, they are all caught in the cycle. My personal interpretation is that things used to be able to die in Rainworld. However, the mass ascension threw things out of balance in such a way that now if you do, you simply wake up again the next day. It's the fundamentals of the cycle, and specifically my understanding of it. And I really would like to be clear that this is my interpretation, and it's also not a very common interpretation for the cycle, as far as I am aware. Anyway, every single creature wants out of the cycle, out of this endless struggle for survival. We're told as much by Five Pebbles, one of the most important characters. They're the ones who tell us about the Void Liquid, the escape, the way out of this cycle, the path to ascension. By doing so, we are given the chance to truly leave the world we exist within. But Five is struggling as a being. Even as the base survivor, you find these things, blue tendrilled beings with some kind of sentience. They're blind, so they can't see you. But you make noise whenever you jump or throw anything, and they will seek you out and consume you. They are sentient tumors grown off the strata of Five Pebbles. Tumors because Five has cancer, something he inadvertently gave himself by trying to rewrite the very code that forbade him from taking his life. A life he feels is meaningless because the one reason he was given to exist left. In the game, we see Five deal with the repercussions of this action. There's this anger with him, anger that I completely understand, but I still want to throw rocks at him. Personal anger that is fueled by the fact that he is directly responsible for killing Looks to the Moon, the other iterator we meet throughout the game. Remember how I mentioned that they use water from rivers to cool off? Moon and Five share a water source. While Five was trying to rewrite his strata to overcome the suicide safeguard, he needed to consume a lot of energy. This made a lot of water get used by him. Water that Moon also required. Water that Moon would get and cause flooding to her entire structure. I know that I'm accounting this in a way that makes it seem like Five is inherently the bad guy. That's the objectively wrong take. He's not exactly a good guy, but he's not really the villain either. It's not that simple. Much like the crumbling ruins we run through, There's so many layers, subtext, and implication that have made this video so difficult, and this subject matter so hard to broach for me. Inference can only get you so far when there's this much to chew on, and there's a lot of chewing in this game. I mentioned these little fellas, and do not be fooled, they are not friend-shaped. These are lizards. They are hungry, and the sludge you're playing is a very good snack. They fight each other, they fight you, they fight other creatures, all for the chance of one little meal. They also run away, as mentioned earlier. If they're in the room, stuck with a vulture, every cell in their body says to fucking book it. And they do. Despite the fact that you'll see lizards being very out of their depth and go head to head with anything it can snack on, it will not go and fight a vulture. But the vulture will pick up the liz and fly away above the clouds to chow down. The vultures themselves aren't invulnerable. They aren't some omniscient force that come to scare the shit out of you and poof. Get some bombs from the scavs, maybe craft your own. Or just come with a few extra spears in hand and you can topple them and consume their flesh as you would with any lizard, spider, lizard, batfly, lizard. Seriously, why are there so many lizards? Centipede, salamander, which is just another fucking lizard. Why are there so many goddamn lizards? Not a fighter? No problem. You can always just run away. I, myself, am proficient in the skill of, what is that? Please gods, get me the fuck out of here. While I certainly can fight, please ignore the death compilation footage in the background, I usually prefer to run. But you can also just feed them, toss them food, listen to the happy liz.sfx, and then do that a few more times. Hope you can recognize which lizard is yours in this mess. Eventually, they actually do become friends, joining you on your journey, protecting you. You can even make scavs become your friends. Speaking of scavs, they throw spears at you a lot, sometimes for seemingly no reason, and that's called getting scaved. Get used to it. It's gonna happen a lot. Either you learn how to appear less threatening and understand that they may just kill you anyway, or become Death Destroyer of Worlds, or make friends. If you become friends with the scavs, you can get away with a lot of things that would normally prompt aggression from them. This works through the reputation system, a system so obscure that the game barely hints at its existence, in which you can raise or lower global and individual reputations depending on personal actions. That sounds like it's straight from the wiki. It's not, it's from memory, based off what my chat was telling me when I played through this and found that out over 100 hours in the game. I'm not joking. You might be asking what all can help with getting reputation, right? Well, you should go find out yourself, and I'm definitely 100% not just saying that because I don't really understand it at all. Speaking of things I don't understand, karma. At the time of writing this sentence, I have over 200 hours in the game. At the time of speaking it, it's about 210. I have completed every playthrough, including Saint, which has an entire playthrough dedicated to karma. I also don't get the story of Saint at all. I'm not going back and replaying the slime bastard to understand it either. This playthrough almost made me quit the game. You can like him, you're allowed to, but holy fuck, I did not enjoy whatsoever. Please never make me look at this fucker again. Anyway, I think the main reason I don't get karma is it seems to be a metaphorical concept, but also a tangible force within the world of Reigns. And I cannot figure out which I'm meant to be understanding it as. And you know what? It's a good thing. Every few weeks or so, I postulate some new theory or understanding about what karma is and its significance, and I want an answer, one I find satisfying and complete. From the looks of it, the currently upcoming Watcher DLC isn't going to have much on karma, if anything. And such, it leaves me speculating about why this specific scav gives 5 karma and this other one gives 3. What kind of lives have they lived that put them in these positions? Does every living creature have karma? If so, why don't 5 and Moon bring it up at all at any point to my knowledge? 5 mentions the gates, but not that they're karma gates. Does it have anything to do with 5 and Moon being artificial beings? If so, why do we have karma? A number of the sludges are canon of being made for the exact reasons that occur in their specific campaign. It's implied that the surprise of Hunter's cycles, that whole deal, it's because he was rushed and not being given time to fully form, hence what he becomes after. So what is karma? What has karma? Is karma tangible? I'm about to go make a couple sentient supercomputers and go find out. Yeah, so it turns out supercomputers are like really expensive. I don't have a sponsor for you to fast forward. Have you like seen the price of supercomputers lately? Shit's expensive, dude. Anyway, circling back to the original question I posed in the title and subsequently gave a very different context to when I went on for however long about Video Cult's gift to humanity. What makes a game alive? Why does Rainworld do it better than any other game I've ever played to date? I've already implied it in the intro that was very much inspired by Jacob Geller, by the way. It was someone who introduced me to the game. I think the game feels a lot more alive when there's a significant amount of lore to really dive into, sink your teeth into. It's a great game for people like me who will and absolutely can obsess over it. If the game has the lore that ties into gameplay in a significant enough way, then it's even better. And this game does a lot of that. You, the player, cannot change the outcome of anything, really. The world will continue, and things will unfold, regardless of how hard you try. You are powerless in the face of all of this, but you are not useless. Far from it. As without the player's intervention, Moon would remain dead. Her final words never having reached her friends, and 5 would never have had the chance to redeem himself for the wrong he's done. Maybe that's where our answer lies, but I'm a professional yapper, so I have more to say on the topic. A feeling of playing your role in the affairs of passing gods is hardly the only thing to make this game stand out as alive as it does. I hardly brought up the game's AI for nothing. The goal of the people at Video Cult was to make a real ecosystem, something that you can't do with any game engine on the market even today, not to mention 10 years ago when the game was originally being developed. So they made their own engine, an engine designed to be able to do this exact feat. An engine I really wish I could get my hands on and play with, but that's not the point. The reason game engines don't get made for every game studio or every game or whatever is because it's usually a pretty bad idea in most cases. This is from someone who has made her own game engine for the fun of it. It was not fun, it was infuriating, and I hated it, and I didn't even finish. It was just operational. I'm getting off track. What was I talking about? Right, lizards. Every single enemy in this game is coded to have their own behavior, their own fight or flight reactions, their own hunger that needs filled, and it's reactive, and those ones and zeros were made with the idea that the player could make different choices. Want to fight? It's gonna fight back in most cases, until it realizes it might die, and then it might try to run away, depending on what you're fighting exactly. Want to be its friends? Well, they're hungry, and you're probably just as easy to eat as the thing you're trying to feed the lizard. Trying to run away? They can, and oftentimes will, follow you, a lot of the times to entirely new rooms, hoping you slip up and they get a snack. And that's just the lizards. For example, vultures, the faces you see on them, that's just a mask. It looks goofy underneath, right? Well, Bird Brains over here took that thought personally. And now it's going to follow you for the rest of the day and seek you out anytime you come back. If it's still alive, it wants you dead, because the vultures view their mask as a token of pride, and you fucking removed it. This entity in a computer that I don't control has an emotion, and it is actively acting on it, and it's holding a fucking grudge against me, the player. Hell, I've seen vultures put themselves in active danger because of a lost mask and a need to find and kill the player for their transgression in that. Monster Hunter Worlds was designed to feel like a living, breathing world, and it doesn't even have monsters that can hold a grudge. The best argument would be Anjanath and Doubt. So clearly, this is where the living is, right? That living feeling for the world? It's a slightly pointless argument, isn't it? I mentioned Mr. Jacob Geller earlier in a slightly passing comment. As many of you might have been able to tell, I have indeed been inspired by Mr. Jacob Geller. In fact, several of my early attempts at writing video essays of any kind, before I made the Accused video and actually started, they were deconstructions of Mr. Geller's videos. Responses of sorts. Responses I never intended on doing a voiceover for, or editing or any of the sort. It was just practice. I wanted to be able to do what I'm doing now. Less in an attempt to argue against him, but I bring this up because I wanted to be as transparent about my inspiration as possible. I think it's a very important thing. My personal intro that changes slightly in every video is a mix between a bucket of Jake and D'Angelo. My writing style is probably quite reminiscent of Jacob Geller. My topics are simply things I just care immensely about, or things I find fascinating. Sometimes with a therapy session moment, as a way of me getting out some of my emotional trauma I don't know how else to process. Something I'm pretty sure I got from Super Eye Patch Wolf and toned it up a bit, but I can't be certain of that anymore, or if that's just kind of how I am. Anyway, if you've seen Jacob Geller, you've likely seen his video about the best looking game of all time. I had an idea for this video before that one was released, so we were likely working on our respective scripts at the same time, but something struck out to me in that video. Mr. Geller ends up discussing how futile in some respect it is to chase that goal, the best looking game of all time, since the finish line will simply move with the next console generation as it always has. And as I watched, I was still trying to determine how exactly I wanted this script to go, and I felt like, yeah, it is futile, but we still do it, and more than one ever-changing goalpost. And to be fair, if I remember correctly, Geller does come to a conclusion that despite how futile it is reaching that finish line, it's not pointless. It's just a little bit more of a footnote in history. But here's the thing. I don't think this is pointless. I don't think it's frivolous. Video Cult fully handled their goal. This wasn't a wasted effort. Rainworld won't end up being a list in the stepping stones to create a fully immersive and living feeling world. And for that reason, I believe Rainworld is the baseline now. I'm not usually someone who likes to make bold predictions, but in all honesty, I'm almost 100% sure without a shadow of a doubt we will not see a game as alive as Rainworld before the end of this decade. If I'm wrong, then so be it, but I truly, genuinely believe that will be the case. I'd go as far as saying that by the end of the 2020s, we will barely see games mimicking this level of living within their worlds. And we have console generation coming up before the end of the decade, if my math isn't wrong. Rainworld has the most reactive and immersive enemies I've ever seen, mixed in with lore deep enough that you can meditate between DLC releases and still not get an answer. Again, a bird can hold a grudge against you, not in a Shadow of Mordor way where you can see who they are and their specific quirks, and it's in a realistic way, where it just hunts you down. The characters are believable from the first time you meet them to the last. Every line of dialogue from 5 just makes me want to punch his fucking face in, and every line feels like it's perfectly within reason for him to say those exact words. And I'm sure, maybe, yeah, there's better storylines in game. I'll concede on that. But in conjunction with the rest of the package, honestly, this feels like a game I would have easily paid $50 US for. Not the 10 I think I spent. Rainworld has managed to do something very few games has ever done to me. It's made me see the credits and think to myself, this is a landmark in gaming. It's almost always something we realize in retrospect, yeah? And the fact that this masterclass in creating a living world in gaming is as obscure as it is, it's criminal. I bought the game because I thought it looked neat, and I saw a handful of videos, and it was always mentioned in passing. And I honestly believe it deserves far better than a passing notice. Anyway, that's about it. I actually have an outro today. It's not going to be as formatted as I usually do for the rest of my video, because I usually don't have outros, since I don't feel it really fits the tone, but here we are, in an outro. I'm moving up in the world, surely. Real quick, I just want to say thanks to my editors, who hopefully get this vid done in time for me, for the 1 year of me streaming it. One of the editors is me. Speaking of, I started streaming this game, and like, shortly after Spiff streamed it, like Astral Spiff, and that was really cool. Also, thanks to my script editor. I won't say your name for privacy, but you're reading this and you're probably gonna say something sassy in the Google Doc, and I checked the comments and you absolutely did. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Thanks to Onion, who does all my audio mixing and makes me sound slightly less shit. I'm sorry to make you listen to approximately 30 minutes of me yapping while I have a fucking cold. I've been having some real life issues. I did mention it towards the start of it, but as a reminder, I don't have an upload schedule at all. I try to post about once a month. Please don't do the YouTube things. I think it's funnier if I have no subs and get views anyway, because I just think it's funny. It makes my brain giggle. The doctors become concerned. You can also catch me on Twitch if you feel like it, Erishgiggle. I stream on my weekends, and usually in stream to work on these videos here. Have a good new year, I guess. Or don't. I'm not your mom. I'm some bitch on the internet, dude. Go do something fun. Go create something, you know? Have a good night. Sleep well.